Welcome to episode 11 of the Racket House podcast, where we discuss all things music and success in our fun corner of the world, helping to inspire, inform, educate, motivate, and keep hope alive for musicians, creatives, entrepreneurs, and anyone else who wants to grow their brand in the music or creative spaces. Today, it's our first ever in-person live podcast, episode 11. It only took us 11 episodes to get here, but we're doing it in person. We're welcoming Rob West, a.k.a. RC3, to the podcast. He's a Denver-based producer, DJ, and someone who's making serious waves in the electronic scene. He's played underground spots like Elsewhere, New York, and main stages at Global Dance Festival, plus festivals like Decadence and Regenerate. And on top of that, he's a key player behind 128 Productions here in Denver, curating some of Denver's top electronic music events. We're going to dive in with RC3, Rob West, and talk about his journey, the scene, what's next. It's going to be unhinged. We're going to have some laughs. Please welcome to the podcast, Rob West, a.k.a. RC3. And I finally got the soundboard. Let's go. Benefits of being in person. Welcome, Rob.
I appreciate it, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. I mean, we've known each other, I think, well, through one of our dear mutual friends over the years. We got introduced years and years and years ago. But I was joking before we even started recording that this hour of conversation will be me getting to know you more than I probably ever have, because, we've just been in social situations, music settings, you've been throwing these dope events I've been to and you're fucking locked in and all of that, or we've been playing pool, we've been watching football games. So this is going to be a fun conversation getting to know you.
No doubt. Yeah, man. I'm excited.
And hearing your story. So, I mean, you've worn a lot of different hats, like a lot of people I have on, like myself too. You've lived all over the country. You produce music, you DJ, you throw events, you have other side things even unrelated to music. So I'd love to hear just, why and why your music career began. Like what shape it took to start things out. Did it start as a producer, a DJ, an event producer? Like where were things starting for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It's kind of a very scattered answer, I would say. I grew up in musical theater and stuff like that when I was a kid, and then, into high school and whatnot, and then started making music in college. Shout out Oklahoma State.
I was going to say, where was that? Oklahoma State, let's go.
Oklahoma State for undergrad, and I was going to raves in high school, so that was early 2000s. And then obviously,
and where was that?
Down in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went to high school for a couple of years there. I grew up in a military family, so I lived kind of all over the place. But that was kind of my introduction a little bit to that scene. And then
raves in high school in Tampa.
And then kind of got to college, and then kind of got an iMac or I don't remember what the first laptop I had was, but it had Pro Tools and GarageBand on it. Yeah. And so, buddies and I just kind of messing around in the bedroom, and was making hip hop music actually at the beginning, and because that's what was cool in 2005.
Sure. Yeah.
And then graduated OSU in 2008, and then kind of went down the corporate America route.
Been there.
Kind of living the life of expectations and ideas and dreams that were not necessarily mine.
We have a lot in common.
Right. And then I moved to Denver in 2015, and then just kind of got to the point where I was had accomplished a lot in that world, but was really unfulfilled. And I'd been going to a lot more shows, and I was like, man, I don't see why I can't do this, or at least give it a rip. And so I left corporate America in 2017, and then kind of just no other option but to make it happen. So didn't play my first show out until 2018. Labor Day weekend with Weiss at Bar Standard. Just kind of randomly, I'd been going out, kind of been in the scene here for a little while, and been bringing my USB everywhere, playing after parties, playing anywhere that there was a place I could plug in at, and then skills just kind of started getting better. People started talking to promoters about me, and so I was really lucky in that way. And then kind of played that first show, and things kind of took off from there. Was playing direct support slots at the church and places like that after like a couple of months. My first time playing there was with Anna Luno. Shout out to Anna Luno. She's amazing.
Yeah.
And then I met Alex Paget, my business partner in 128 Productions, the spring of 19. And then we started, he had thrown a couple of shows as 128 before we met. And then we threw our first show together in, I want to say it was like June of 19. No. Yeah. Sure. Whatever. June 19,
Who's
I think.
counting?
Yeah. Right. And then maybe it was 18. I think it was 18. Anyways.
Yeah.
So we threw our first show as 128 Productions together at the rooftop of Lincoln Street Station, which doesn't exist anymore. I think I overdrafted my bank account to pay for sound at that show, because it was the beginning, and so it had to be good. People had to come back, and so from there things just started, blossoming and started producing a lot more music, and then was fortunate enough to play all over the country now. I've played every major venue here in Denver. And then, man, just it's kind of gone from there. We were lucky enough to go from that small show to, throwing Regenerate Fest here in Denver the last 2 years, having people out like Eric Prydz, Purple Disco Machine, Charlotte DeWitt, John Summit. Actually, John wasn't on Regenerate. I lied. Yes, he was. No, he wasn't. Anyways,
stop lying to us,
dude.
man. Dates are incorrect.
I know, right? Well, we've thrown a number of shows with him, but he was actually on Regenerate this year.
Okay,
I'm just making sure. So, but yeah, so things have kind of grown, and super fortunate and blessed to be able to do what we do, and who knows what the next 5-10 years of dance music looks like, but we're gonna be there for it.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. That was the full story. This was Rob West. Yay! Just kidding. There's obviously a lot there. We kind of want to unpack some of the stuff. I mean, so what was interesting to me? I mean, first of all, I want to dive into what a Tampa rave looks and feels like, especially from the lens of a high schooler.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
What is that like?
I mean, it's pretty much what you would expect.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
It was 2000, like 2001, 2002, anywhere and any place that people could put speakers up and get random spots. Probably went to not a ton, because obviously I was like 16, so getting out was not the easiest thing to do. But
out,
So, and then it's wild because then, I moved to Oklahoma my junior and senior year of high school, and then Oklahoma's not necessarily like the biggest hub of dance music.
You get more rodeos than
exactly,
raves, for sure.
Exactly. So we did have a couple of places. There's a place up in Tulsa called Kane's Ballroom, and like Ghostland Observatory was there.
Nice.
Like some of those, like beginning. Kind of the intro to a lot of people getting into dance music, or at least at that time. And then moved to Texas after that, and then was able to kind of, see shows in Austin, went to Euphoria Fest a couple of times, which I don't think necessarily exists anymore. I remember seeing Skrillex at ACL in like, I think it was like 2012, like in a tent. Mm-hmm. And so it was just kind of starting to open up a little bit. Yeah. And then I was fortunate enough to move to Denver not that long after. Yeah. And then obviously you don't realize what a scene is, and what a big scene is like, outside of, the coasts and Chicago and Detroit. Yeah. So we're, obviously very lucky to have what we have here.
Shout out Skrillex. I'm going to press a random button and see what happens. Shout out Skrillex. That was perfect.
Oh,
Okay.
man.
I'm going to have to buy a soundboard for all future podcasts. That was great. Yeah. Okay. So, and then one of the interesting pieces I thought in your story was how you started out by producing hip hop. And
Yeah.
that was like the sound of the times. That was what you were into at the time. By the way, who were like some of your hip hop influences or favorite artists back then? Or even now?
On the hip hop side, obviously, like, love like Bone Thugs, anything from, NWA, Nas, Common,
Sure.
like
The good stuff.
a lot of that was kind of what I grew up in. So I loved like kind of the depth of lyricism in a lot of that. And so when I was making hip hop music, my buddy Jeff and I, shout out Jeff, he's been out here.
Shout out Jeff, random button here.
Yeah, he was my, he was my, one of my pledge brothers in college. And then we lived together, for a couple of years, and we would just be in my bedroom just writing lyrics and making beats and rapping over it. I wish I still had the tracks because I would love to sample them. They were on MySpace. Let's just put it to you that way. They were on MySpace, and I don't know where the actual files live, but if I could ever find them, I'm sure they're on an old
files.
Probably on an old laptop or something.
Was your artist name RC3 back then?
No, it was Jeff and I were the anonymous clique.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. Yep. So the page is actually still up, but the music's gone.
Yeah.
So
okay, if I can draw a related story. So I had the fortunate pleasure of being best friends with a guy in high school, middle school, 5th grade. Shout out Natick Middle. Where did I go? Wilson Middle School in Natick, Massachusetts. What up? I met. 5th grade, they combined some of the elementary schools into 2 middle schools. So we were meeting people for the first time in our town that we hadn't met before. Dude was in my 4-desk cluster wearing a Rage Against the Machine t-shirt in 5th grade. And they were my favorite band of all time. And I'm like,
shout out Tom Morello.
Shout out Tom Morello.
Shout out Boston. Shout out Harvard.
Okay, I gotta stop. And I was like, oh, you like Rage? I was like, I like Rage, blah, blah, blah. And we started like making music together, angsty teen rock band, eventually called A Crowded Mind. But also, he helped me with an 8th grade history project or English project. I'm not sure. But I wrote a rap about the story of Troy.
Yeah.
And I could I'm trying to think of it. So it was like, it was Paris. I wrote a rap about Paris. Paris, Prince of Troy, Paris, not a boy, Paris, stole Hound of Sparta, and this is a story I'm about to tell you. And he had a vinyl collection, and he actually like made the beat and was like scratching, and like that was a hip hop track that I made with my buddy in his basement. He had all the equipment, and we're talking 8th grade, dude. This was so advanced for our age, and I got an A+. So just want to shout out another common thread that Rob and I had that we didn't even know about. We're both awesome hip hop people. And okay, so my question was going to be, how did you transition from being in the hip hop world to getting into the electronic scene and deciding that you wanted to produce electronic, DJ electronic? And even more so, I mean, has it pretty much only been house and techno, or were there any kind of other elements in there?
I mean, that's a good question. No, it hasn't always been all house and techno. I actually played a show in Orlando, like an EDC pre-party, and played bass music back in like, I don't know, 2017 or 18, I think. But I mean, I also loved, like, remember Girl Talk? Yeah, obviously.
Absolutely.
It's like Girl Talk. Like I love, yeah, right. I love kind of having that like vocal piece in house and techno, but I also love kind of the vagueness of what you can do in house and techno. Sure. You know what I mean? There's just such a, the spectrum is so broad. As well as, I don't necessarily think I could just headbang anymore at my age. So
we're getting up there.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with a lot of like the first records I ever owned in my life were, you remember Columbia House, like where you would get the boxes of CDs, right?
Yep.
So I think this was probably like, man, had to have been like the early 90s or something like that. And I had, my parents had the magazine thing. And so they were like, oh, you can pick out some CDs or whatever. So the first ones I ever had were CNC Music Factory, Real McCoy, and Ace of Base.
Yeah.
So like, not even realizing like at that age, at 7, 8 years old, that like you're listening to, you're basically listening to, some of the, early kind of pioneers of that sound. And so I think I just kind of naturally gravitated towards it.
Favorite Ace of Base song?
Oh man, it's definitely Not the Sign for sure.
I
knew that was coming. God,
come on, sing it with me, baby.
There's another one. God, now I'm gonna have to look it up. You're gonna drive me nuts on this.
They're one of those groups that has a bunch of hits that like I don't think we all realize. Like it's not just the one song.
Exactly. It is.
Same thing happened.
Now you put me on the spot. We're
No,
gonna
it's
have
all
to,
good.
we're
I'll
gonna have to
tell
come
a
out
quick
with
side
it.
story. The same thing happened. I was going to see Dead and Company years ago, and I was at physical therapy, telling my physical therapist, I'm going to see Dead and Co. He's like, yeah, I think I know them, but like, let's throw some of their music on while we do our therapy session. And every song that came up, he's like, oh, I know this song. Oh, I know this song. Like Grateful Dead is just one of those bands that was on the radio, and people don't realize they knew their music. What do you got?
All right, you remember All She Wants?
Oh, yeah.
All she wants is another baby. She's gone to my... Yeah, that one.
All right, we're making a remix of that when we get back. Yeah,
done.
All right.
Done. Don't call, don't text. We'll be cooking.
Yeah, DND, do not disturb.
Yeah, right.
We're cooking Ace of Base remixes. Yeah. Okay, so there was some early influences that we didn't realize were influencing our musical taste. Yeah.
100%, man. And so it's like, it's wild because, I find myself, I still love musical theater and stuff. So I did, I've obviously been to Broadway a number of times. And so I like kind of almost like the grandioseness of it, the emotion that comes through and a lot of that stuff.
Sure.
So I think, at least I try to put into my music stuff that isn't, necessarily just drum groove driven, right? Or percussion driven. I think a lot of the stuff that I like to write is a lot more kind of melody and harmonically driven than because I get bored. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and don't get me wrong, like I still make some of that stuff too, but it's like, I need there to be some I don't know, like kind of, I'm not gonna say organic, but like it almost needs to feel like it's kind of alive. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, maybe a common term or overused term would be like emotion. Like, melody elicits emotion.
100%.
And like, I remember watching Justin J did a like a live Zoom with Justin Martin.
Shout out to homie Justin. Oh God, you gotta pick a different button, man.
Do that again.
Shout out to homie Justin J. Let's go. Aww. There we go. That's better.
Okay. The two Justins, for those who don't know, the audience is not exclusively dance music, which I think is really cool about what I'm trying to build here. But so two bigger names in the dance world and electronic world, Justins, and Justin J had on Justin Martin, and Justin Martin was talking about his relatively new label and what he looks for when he signs music, and he said, I don't care the genre. I don't care the BPM. I just want emotion.
Absolutely.
I want emotionally driven music, and that is what gets people to resonate.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Especially, it's weird because I feel like dance music in general has gone through so many, like, it ebbs and flows. Cyclical. I mean, remember the early 2010s, and it was, all of that really big progressive, obviously Avicii, kind of, that sound, which did have a lot of that, and then it kind of changed and went a little bit more minimal of that. Right. Yeah. But then I feel like, as dance music came out of, something that was, because I remember, especially when I was like in high school and college, right, in an atmosphere where like people don't listen to dance music. Sure. I remember my buddy Chris and I, we were roommates together freshman year, and we were like, we'd be in there listening to, like dance music in general, and everybody that lived in our house was like, "He's fucking weirdos," you know. I don't know if this is a kid friendly show or not, but like, and so it kind of was back then, like the Island of Misfit Toys music, and then as it kind of blossomed into the national consciousness, obviously it's always been there for the cities that Chicago, Detroit, New York, right? Like, but outside of that, I think it kind of had to elicit almost like a pop-like response, to engage the broader audience. And then it's cool to see now, at these big festivals or big shows, DJs are not playing the same stuff. They are not playing in genre. Almost like it's not common to see, at least commercially successful DJs, right? Main stage DJs playing, directly down their lane,
right?
Which I think is great.
Right.
I mean, you've got, bass artists having house projects and house projects and house artists, making, I mean, look at Summit and Subtronics, right?
Yeah.
Like collabing, which I think is awesome because you can pull stuff from different genres and incorporate it into your own. And so it kind of it gives it crossover appeal. And then also like when you're playing so often, it keeps you from being bored,
right.
Like
absolutely.
There's only so many songs, there's an infinite number of songs, but like, it excites, it can excite you because you're going to put something in that, people aren't expecting, which, is awesome. I think it's really cool to see kind of the breaking down of genre barriers.
Yeah, I think like there's something to be said about a tempo flip. There's something to be said about like I strive to do that in my sets now too. Like I'm typically a house variety 4 on the floor kind of DJ, but I'll play every if I'm like at a house party, I'll play everything. Yeah. Like depends on what the setting is and the audience obviously, but I made a Ludacris edit recently with a buddy of mine, and we actually were about to like get it finalized, mixed, mastered, and put it out. And I was like, wait a minute, we're doing ourselves and our audience a disservice by not putting the OG section in the middle of it. So we ended up flipping it, getting the slowed down. It was rollout. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
And then, and so that's definitely something. I think there are certain artists who will certainly stay in their lane. Like, I actually went to Decadence this year here in Denver, and 2 artists came to mind when you were telling the story. One of them was Chris Lake, who will probably never deviate from his typical lane, right? That's like what he's known for. He's got these bangers. It just flows seamlessly, and he's got the hits too. So, but then I saw Seven Lions. And Seven Lions it's been a minute since I've seen him, but he was playing everything. What?
I actually was going to mention him earlier. I love Seven Lions.
Yeah, he's great. And so, I mean, I knew him like when he first broke out, I was hearing him on the Injuna podcast. It was Trance Around the World. And I don't know, whatever, group therapy. But shout out Above and Beyond.
Yep.
Should I do it?
Do it.
Shout out Above and Beyond.
Yeah, we're making progress on the.
For those who are just listening to this, like I'm studying this 8x8 soundboard here with all these different things, and I don't know, they're not labeled, so I'm taking wild guesses here. So he broke out as this sort of like artist who was fusing trance and like bass music and like dubstep and stuff, which is really cool. I actually, fun side story, I went to Burning Man in 2018. And there's this big camp there called Opulent Temple.
Okay.
And they're known for just being one of the biggest sound camps. We were actually the other night watching like Carl Cox's set from there. And they wrote their lineup on like cardboard. It was like cardboard with a Sharpie. It was like the lineups there. And it said Sven Lions. Sven Lions. And I'm like, talking to my buddy, I'm like, is that like a typo? Like what? Did somebody just fuck that up? And we go and we catch Sven Lions, and it's his psytrance alter ego, which I had no idea even existed. And I'm not a big, I'm like a whatever psytrance guy. It's not my main thing. And we went to see it, and this set was awesome. Yeah. It was just horse track, like, it was really cool. Anyway, at Decadence this year, he was playing very uplifting trance melodic stuff into a little bit of kind of like fast-paced kind of techno psytrance stuff, into a little bit of a dubstep halftime drop. Like we like that kind of stuff, and the crowd was reacting to everything too, which is a big so it just depends on kind of like your brand, your style, knowing your crowd, knowing your audience, how to read a room and all that. But I think to your point, I played a show in LA a couple weeks ago, and I tried to, I put down what I thought was a pretty good and slightly varied set with some different ebbs and flows in it. And then people, yes, they were my friends, so definitely biased, but they were like, the people after me, the headliners, they weren't that impressed by it, because it was just kind of like one sound the whole way through, and it was,
right.
So people get a little bored by that. Or maybe I just wore them out with my awesome set before. Who knows? But
that's definitely probably what it was.
I spoke a lot there. And then one other thing I wanted to touch on, and I'm speaking too much here, but I have to resonate with this. My friends called me the weirdo who got into dance music in college.
Okay.
You mentioned that part.
Yeah.
I went to Australia for a semester. That's what really influenced me getting into dance and electronic, because they listen to a lot of that stuff down there. I came back my senior year of college, and I'm listening to all this stuff. And my friends were like, "What's wrong with you? What happened to you down there?"
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. So that's my style now. So as a producer, and I actually have noticed that when I hear you DJ and when you play me some of your tracks, the melodic stuff, which I really love. Do you have any tracks like that you're really, really proud of to this day, or anything that you've been working on that you want to call out and maybe preview to the people?
Yeah, I've got a few that are getting ready to come out. Wrote a couple.
Excuse me.
Yeah, you're good. I wrote a couple with my buddy Steven Buckridge, also known as Mysteria. Shout out Mysteria. Hit the button.
Shout out Mysteria.
Hit it. Yeah, we've got a couple. He and I've got a couple coming out that I think it was kind of my first time really pushing BPMs higher while still trying to keep some of the, I guess you would say, like, delicateness or kind of brightness of some of the house stuff that I like. Those ones are coming out soon. I actually, it's really funny, right before I played the Ogden Theater here in Denver with Cream about a month or so ago, and I was in the studio one night with I digress. I was in the studio. Full disclosure, my fiance is a huge Swiftie. Shout out Erica. I love you.
Wait, hold on.
That's bad. That's
there
better.
It is, yeah.
And I think we had just watched like the Eras Tour movie or whatever. And like, call it what you want. I think Taylor Swift's fantastic. I think she's a phenomenal songwriter, great performer. And so I was like, randomly.
She's not a hack.
No, she's absolutely not. Randomly enough, I was like, hey, I found this acapella of a Taylor Swift track. I don't feel like I could write it like correctly without somebody in the room that like loves Taylor Swift.
Sure.
And so she's never done this before. And I was like, do you want to sit in and write this track with me? And surprisingly enough, she goes, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. So I think I wrote the whole song in like maybe an hour or so. And so I am going to release that. It's an I Hate It Here remix that's going to come out soon. So yeah, actually I haven't, other than that Ogden show, and then I played Regenerate in June. I mean, I haven't really played a ton of shows because I've just been writing music.
Cranking.
Yeah.
Love
so, kind of winding down on that. Also got to get another shout out to Aspire Artist Academy. My homie Steven Mystery, he started that, and I mean, the guy's credentials and the other people that are involved in that school are incredible. I mean, every major label you can think of, they released on. So I was kind of in the first cohort of people that went through that, and it was awesome from beginning to end. It really kind of helped me be able to, streamline my workflow and, because, I mean, I have ADHD pretty bad. And so for me, if and when writer's block happens, it happens really, really bad.
Yeah.
So those guys have just kind of gave a ton of tools and ways to like work around it and stuff like that. So it's really kind of opened the floodgates a lot to the volume of work that I've been doing. And so kind of now, you know, as spring rolls around and then, you know, show season really starts to ramp up, I think it's going to be a lot more in the phase of like deciding what's going to come out and what's not.
Sure.
You know what I
That's
mean?
great.
Because it was a lot of, you know, there was a lot of like not even really thinking about just writing.
Right.
So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out this year. I'm really excited about it. Definitely going to be releasing more music than I ever had in my life, probably combined. So make sure to look out for that. There is some of my relatively recent stuff out on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/RC3 official. Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Yep.
Please.
But yeah, so pumped to see kind of what it ends up looking like. But yeah, man.
It's good to have choices. It's good to get through work quickly. I think writer's block is a real thing. And I also think it's really important to invest in yourself. And you know, like if you have goals in any part of your life that you want to achieve and you're having trouble getting there and you're not sure how to do it and you're feeling stuck, you're feeling alone, or you know, there's so many resources out there. Like I'm a music production school dropout.
Right.
Like, I'm weird. Like I don't learn the best in a classroom setting. I learn by sitting with other producers, collaborating with them, trial by error, getting feedback, things like that. But I went to IO Music Academy in LA, shout out, awesome program, amazing instructors. And I learned a ton, you know, it was intro stuff. There was tips on, you know, it was Ableton based, which I used. So it was like learning Ableton, learning music theory. I grew up a drummer.
Sure.
I had no musical theory background, right? So, and they tried to teach us, and I was just like, no, I don't want to play bells. I want to play drums, you know? So I think it's really important. And I know plenty of producers who have gone through programs like, you know, Tool Room Academy and things like that have like gone. So it's great to hear.
Yep.
And this is a local school too. So if you're local in the Denver, Colorado area and looking to get in some
I mean, it's also it's
online
it's,
too, right?
Yeah, it's also online nationwide now. If you have questions, hit me up. Instagram @RC3 official. I can definitely talk to you about that. And you know, it is something that you have to apply for, but the ranges of skills are quite broad. So I wouldn't hesitate, you know, even as long as you know your way around a DAW at the very beginning, I think you can, you know, it can take you anywhere. And I also think, you know, even for people that have been producing for a long time, right? Like if you're producing for a long time, you can get stuck in your ways, you know, like and so everybody doesn't want to, you don't want to sound, you want to have a sound, but you don't want to be derivative, right? Sure. Like, so in my opinion, like you were saying, you know, collabs are great. You definitely learn the way that people see production through different people's eyes, but I think it's always good to continue investing, kind of like you said. You know, otherwise, I mean, stagnation's death, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it really is. Great points all around. And for those who don't know, by the way, DAW is an acronym, and it's DAW, stands for Digital Audio Workstation. So if you've never heard of that, it's quite okay. Not everybody's a producer out there. But okay, I have a question for you. Marry, fuck, kill. Because we're going to get in some other sides of your life too. So
kill John.
Kill me, which, you know, yeah, it's a pretty common answer at this point. Marry, fuck, kill, music production.
Okay.
DJing.
Okay.
And throwing events, producing events.
Oh.
Basically the three main things you're involved with.
Jesus.
Do we have any Jeopardy TikTok?
Man, that's a really good question.
It's okay. We're not going to beholden you to this, you know, but.
I mean, obviously I love all three. I would say that.
So just a non-monogamous relationship with all three. Open, polygamous.
I would have to say probably marry throwing events.
Okay.
Just because I feel like
That'll probably pay you the best.
Well, yeah, I mean that and the longevity of that, I think, is probably, at some point I'm probably not going to have the energy to sit in a studio and live the life of play a show, go to bed, and fly and play another show again.
Yeah.
So let's say, man, fuck DJing and kill production eventually.
Okay.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's a really tough one. I don't like that.
Okay. Well,
That's
there are very few people I can ask that question to, but
yeah,
I come up here on the Racket House podcast. We have the hard-hitting questions that really stump people and bring dead air to life.
Like, what is this, a deposition?
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, I do want to kind of transition into that part of your life, right, that you are so heavily involved with, and that is throwing events and making experiences happen. And I think it's interesting, too. I'd love to kind of talk about the scene here in the state that we live in, because I've had the perspective of, I was living in Boston when the dance scene was getting big, those Aviciis of the world and the Skrillexes and all that. Then I moved to California for 10 years. I spent 5 years in San Francisco, 5 years in LA. Huge music scenes there, right? Like, obviously LA as well. And then, I come to Colorado and I moved here in August and people are like, how's Denver? How's Colorado? And I'm like, people are awesome. I feel like there's a sense of community here. And you know what? There's an amazing music scene here. And I don't think a lot of people talk about it. And it's not just one genre. Like LA, you get a ton of house. Obviously, there's all kinds of music in LA. But like in the electronic scene especially, there's a lot of just like house. There's other stuff too. Yep. Even Colorado, it's a big bass city. House is actually kind of in the minority. But there's jam bands. There's all kinds of stuff that fly through here. So like, what's your having lived all around the world, all around the country, and played all around? Like, what is your perspective? How would you describe the Colorado and the Denver scene overall?
I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, it is a huge community. Right. I mean, when I started getting into the scene here in 2017, it was definitely more bass driven at that time. We still had Beto as a club. They still, that still existed. The downtown scene was, kind of a little bit more normal, I guess you would say. And then, kind of, you always had, Whirling Dervish, OG house and techno, event throwers, known those guys for a long time. The 100, Bread and Briarly, Option 4. I am one of the 100, and that was kind of like my first like tight crew of house heads. We just kind of like migrated from room to room. It was Tennyson's Tap on Tuesdays for Techno Taco Tequila Tuesday. And on Wednesdays it was Steam. Thursdays it was like Lost Lake Open Decks. And then Friday came around and wherever, whenever. So, and then, kind of as I would say, and back then, it was a different kind of, Justin Martin's, saw, Kevin Knapp, love Kevin, like, a lot of like the OG, Mark Knight. We just actually had Mark Knight here, but like, and then from there, you kind of had that like next evolution of, Fishers and the Doms and the Johns and kind of a little bit more of that, like not as underground sound. And then kind of once that happened, it was like, it was crazy. Just especially like, man, right when COVID ended, in 21 here, like it was wild because you would see people at events that you're like, man, I've never, ever seen you here before, it was, so you kind of realize how big and how open, to dance music, the city is. And then obviously having a ton of transplants that live here, we're also lucky enough to have the, the best venue in the world at Red Rocks right up the street.
Hell
so,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we get exposed to so many great artists, and we're really fortunate geographically that, on the 128 side, we get a lot of people, that we are able to route through Denver because, you basically have to go, through
everyone that's called a flyover city. We are a flyover state. We get passed over literally. So come on down.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're really lucky here that, we have so many options of who to bring to the city, and and so I think it's the promoters here that it's for love of the music, and we're lucky enough to be able to take kind of some of those risks because it works.
Right.
It's not like we have to fly somebody over from the UK for a one-off, or like a lot of times people are already here.
Yep.
And so it's just like, hey, you want to stop?
Yeah, and that's a great thing. The small details that I've noticed is a lot of dancing. People actually dance
Correct.
here. Like, LA, come on, like you're not too cool. Like, just dance. And I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'm a big phone. I capture moments. I'm on my phone all the time. But like, not as many people I feel like are like got their phone up and stuff. But let's get into the part you just talked about with like booking talent. I want to know what your thought process is when you consider who you want to bring here, not just headliners, but also local talent, right?
Yeah.
Like up and comers, things like that. Like, what is your process for putting together a show?
Sure. And I mean, for all of our national talent, so Alex Paget, AP is our talent buyer for 128.
Shout out AP.
Shout out AP. But that being said, we talk, and we've also got, there's a number of people on our team, Amber Delisle, Jack Hamlin, Decker Rush, Wesley Paget, those are kind of all, and then we have our collective as well. So we're kind of fortunate that every single person except for Alex DJs and or produces.
The irony.
Yeah, right. So we really just kind of listen to each other, and what, as DJs, that's kind of our whole goal, is to find out what is next.
Sure.
That's what we put in our sets. And so, if somebody sees, damn, like I happen to have 3 tracks in one playlist for a show of somebody who I'd never even heard before, like, let's figure out who they are. Let's talk about it. And so, I mean, that's kind of how a lot of people that we had never had, we've been lucky enough to have a number of people, Hood Politics guys who played here for the first time. There's a number of people that we have brought here for the first time, and I don't necessarily know that we've had a very, very, very small percentage have not come back to Denver. So the support for artists that may have never been here is pretty high, because Denver is a high music IQ city.
Hell yeah.
And then on the local side, we're really lucky that we have so many venues and so many nights of music that there are so many slots for people to play. And so for us, we're just out a lot, and we're at a lot of shows. And so, I don't ever go to shows late. I'm usually there, pretty darn close to the beginning, because, it's also a competitive city, right? So if I hear somebody that I'm like, wow, this is, this person, has got some chops, like, I want to talk to them, So, I think also people care about what they do here. I mean, I've been to other cities, and you'll see people that are on lineups, and, no disrespect to other cities, but the talent level here from a local standpoint, I mean, I truly believe that you could throw a festival completely blind with the music that a lot of the locals play and produce here, and people would lose their minds over it, So I think the availability of opportunities as well as the talent makes it very competitive too. So, you can't just go out and download the, top 50 songs, off of Beatport. For those people that aren't in the music industry, Beatport is where we buy our music primarily.
For DJs primarily, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think people really care about it here. It's not like I want to, go play popular music, get free drinks, and talk to girls. It's like people actually want to progress and get better. And I mean, you see that with the people that have kind of graduated from Denver and gone on to play much bigger and broader places.
It is really a hub. And I was telling Rob on the way here, I had to get some pieces of paper printed because who owns a printer in 2025? And the guy at the store was reading my shit, which is fine. And he's like, "Oh, you make music?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, me too." And I'm like, "Cool. How much I owe?" He's like, "Don't worry about it." I was like, my brother. It's the community.
Absolutely.
So who you like most proud of to have worked with, like to have either brought to this city, maybe helped break out as a result of them playing here? Any names come to mind, or even repeating? I know you've worked with obviously a lot of repeating people who've come here.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, I remember when. So one of the guys that we're really, really big fans of goes by the name of Gen X, and he has come here and played for us a couple times. Hopefully, we're going to get him back again this year.
Come on back.
Yep, we've had. Man, put me on the spot for this one. I mean, I remember, booking, tiny rooms, so we booked a number of shows at Larimer Lounge here in Denver. It's a small 250 cap room, amazing sound. It's just a really cool place.
Yeah.
For people to come in. A ton of, people have played their very first shows ever here at that venue.
Right.
And so we've had, a lot of people know about like Abo was on the up and up. We had him at Larimer Lounge. We've had a number of Angina artists come through there that are starting to break out now. So I don't necessarily think that there's like one person that I'm like, I just think that it's crazy to see that we don't book the same room twice. It's like every time they come back, it's like we're moving on to a bigger 400 cap room or a warehouse, or the next thing you know, it's the Ogden or the Mission or Red Rocks, whatever it may be. And so, from 200 to 5 to 15 to 3,000 to 9,500, it's pretty cool to see, the growth of people that have come through there. So
yeah, I mean, just as a like somebody who's been fortunate to be at some of these shows, even before I moved here, I was in town the summer of 23 to see the resurgence of Pretty Lights, and then you had Torn Foot at Larimer Lounge.
Oh man.
And I'm a big fan of Torn Foot. Shout out Taz.
That's a great one. Yeah.
And then this past year, not even a couple months ago, was it? You brought him to
Bluebird.
Bluebird for a 360 show.
Yeah.
Which is what's the cap in that room?
Cap in that room, I think, is about 5,500,
so
something like that.
Basically double the audience size for the show, and it was so much energy. The opener was great. And then, like a 360, everyone's like huddled all around. I see some industry people popping in.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was so much fun. I mean,
we love Torn is a great example, man. Yeah. Sorry, buddy. No shoeies for me next time. That's fine. But we had him on a rooftop. We actually had him on a rooftop here before the Larimer soft ticket show. And then he was on Regenerate with us too. And he's played a number of bigger shows, support at Red Rocks. But wow, he's a great example.
Great example. And like, those are the kinds of relationships as like an event organizer, like you want to have those relationships because it's like an easy yes for them, right? Like they or they're people, but
right.
And then like you're bringing Eric Prids to town next month.
Yeah. So that's show. So we work a lot with AEG as a co-promoter on a lot of these shows. Yeah.
They like run this city.
Yeah. We've had a really good relationship with them for a long time. So we love Prids. We did book him for Regenerate. But the Mission show wasn't our booking directly, but we definitely are promoting on that show.
Right. So you have some key partnerships as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, I mean, you kind of have to. And kind of to your point, for anybody that's wanting to get into the show production promotion game, I think, you always have to put your best foot forward. Do it right. There's so many, it's so easy to take shortcuts in this business. And in the short term, you really won't see negatives to that.
Yep.
But, kind of to your point that we've had people that have come back and played with us again and again and again. We do it because we love helping build people's careers, and we love the relationships that we have with those people. Like it's wild going from the crowd to, like if I'm not going to name drop anybody here, but being able to call people that having people's phone numbers in my phone that are massive and who's I admire a lot, and to be able to have direct communication with them is strictly because of the relationships that we have built from the shows that we have put on.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of an invaluable thing. It's not just about dollars and cents. You know what I mean? Like, there's a number of shows that we have thrown that, we either didn't make money or lost money on, but we kind of knew like, hey, maybe we booked this a year early, like, and then, but it's worth it to us because we want to give people a platform and we want people to be like, hey, this is done correctly. And then once they start getting bigger and managers get involved and agents get involved and having them realize that if we're going to send an offer out or something like that, they know kind of they can send their artist to us and we'll take care of them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a nice thing to have. It's definitely a little more work, but in the long run, it's definitely worth it.
Reputation is important. I mean, it's I say this time and time again, we say this is like huge industry, tiny industry, like
right.
Small world, big world, like, names get around. Like when you come to a city like Denver, I mean, it's like, okay, who's throwing parties, who can put us on, like who should we hit up, and building those relationships and, creating experiences. At the end of the day, we want to create experiences for people to come and dance and enjoy ourselves.
Right.
And we're typically fans of, the artists as well, which usually helps too. And so that's great to share. I think, so I mean, I have so many questions here, so much limited time, but I mean, I think what I love about you as a person is, you're very opinionated, which I think is a good thing. And you can be a little, you're very outspoken in a lot of ways and can be dry, sarcastic humor, whatever. But I want to hear some of the, like, your icks, like, when thinking about the music industry as a whole, what you've seen out there, like, talk about like what you're loving about the industry today in 2025. What are you hating about it? What are some do's? What are some don'ts? Just like spit out from the brain, no censor.
Sure.
No filter. Let's hear some stuff.
I mean, I think now we're in a big period of consolidation. I think once COVID ended, it was, everybody wanted to be out all the time. And I think now it's more important than ever to be kind of experiential in what you're doing and kind of the shows that you are deciding to throw and the way that you do it. You can't just put an artist on a stage with an LED board in the background and some lights and people just aren't going to automatically buy tickets like they used to, right? There has to be something more, right? Whether it's kind of like you said, doing a 360 show, even though now it's not necessarily the newest thing in the world, but like, different venues, different styles, right? Like, creating kind of a little world in and of itself. And that's kind of when we started 128, that's kind of how we did it. And we're definitely planning on getting back to a lot of that theater of it, I think. Alex was actually a film, he has a degree in film from CU. Cool. And so, like we're some of the shows we have coming up, we're going to be doing a lot of, kind of content around it. Like we're going to make, cinematic trailers and partnering with local businesses, to use their space in a different kind of way. We actually have a show coming up on the 22nd with Mary Vaught. It's going to be at it's basically like a custom apparel company here that in the back they have like a big space. So, kind of doing stuff with them, it's going to feel like, it's not just, your run of the mill, like either warehouse or like venue. We're going to be doing some apparel partnerships with them for that as well. And then, I think, as the scene changes and we see kind of what the next evolution of it is going to be, I think, we'll adapt to that,
or lead the charge.
Yeah. I mean, there you go. Right. But I mean, on the X side, it's tough to really say all the X because there definitely are, but it's also like, when I was younger, like I used to get icked out by a lot of things, like, you know, just unsolicited, like, hey, never meeting somebody in their life. And it's just like, hey man, like I want to get on this show, da 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 da, like, you know, put me on or whatever. And it's like, I realize now you got to shoot your shot. You know what I mean? Like I think people being nervous to try to make connections is a huge negative in my mind, right? Yeah. Like barriers to entry will always exist. This is entertainment. It is music. Yeah. It is competitive, but at the same time, don't ever think like, I mean, we all suffer from imposter syndrome in one form or another, you know, from time to time. And so like, even if it's stepping out of your comfort zone, like, you know, I never in the history of the world, if I'm at a show and somebody has come up to me and like wanted to chat, you know, I will never just like brush somebody off. You know what I mean? Like, and you can also tell anybody that has, you know, a platform, we kind of have a responsibility to be receptive to that, because rising tides lift all ships, right? Mm-hmm. Like the bigger and better the entire scene can be, that benefits everybody. But at the same time, if I were to give a piece of advice to people coming up, if you want to be involved with somebody, don't lead with what you're doing or what you have done or what you can do. You know, make sure that the conversations are organic, you know, because 9 times out of 10, we already know if you're at a show, you know, like that you like the music or that whatever. And and so like the conversations will evolve, right? Yeah. Like don't ever be afraid to talk to people. But at the same time, when you've had 1,000 of these conversations, it's very, very easy to tell who is disingenuous and who is for real. You know, we've seen it all, you know, so.
I'm laughing because I just had Kaysen on my podcast, DJ, producer, A&R, Populate, awesome dude.
Love
and
Kaysen.
Literally, I'm cutting up a clip last night from the podcast talking about this exact same thing.
Yeah.
And this might be at least the 3rd time on this podcast where this topic has come up.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone, listen, it's important, right? People can see right through you. I think there is, okay, yes, your point about shooting your shot is very important, right? We need to do that in this world we live in. No matter what you're doing, could be completely unrelated to music. You don't get anywhere without taking risks and going for what you want. Doing it in a strategic way is very important. Doing it in a way, and I've been guilty of this too. I'm just like so anxious or eager to do something or make a connection or get something or get somewhere. I had to kind of like reel back my strategies as well. Networking is so important, meeting people, connecting, but like that part about connecting is the most important part. Building relationships as human beings. Eventually it'll come out that, okay, you make music, you're a DJ. Like,
exactly.
Sure. Like, but people, and this is what Nick Kaysen said the other day, is like, people work with people. People want to work with people they like and they have a vibe with and a bond with, and that's in any capacity, right? I don't think you'd be coming on here if we haven't built a relationship over recent months, right? So, almost just took this whole fucking thing down. So that is great advice, and I completely agree with it. I mean, I kind of wanted to get your take on like. On social media. I mean, like you started, we both came up when social media wasn't really, Facebook was around, MySpace, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, but like how much does that factor into what you do? And also how much does that factor into, and when I say what you do, I mean like promoting events, but also when you're considering talent, like do you, and I asked this of a major talent buyer in LA, I literally asked him, I was like, do you look at social media when you consider who you're booking? And he's like, I hate to admit it, but I do. Like, what's your whole thing in that?
I mean, my opinion is, to be completely honest, I think anybody that says that they don't is full of shit. You know, I mean, I don't think that it is I don't think it is definitely a secondary piece of it, right? But I mean, you know, think about it. Like if somebody reaches out to you, you listen to a mix or whatever, you're like, man, this is really good. And then you go on to social media and you're like, wow, like this person looks like a tool, you know, is just like not a good person, you know, like you kind of, you know, you want people to be engaged. You want them to, you know, if you're truly so passionate about music, you should be showing it in a way, in any way. Right. And so I'm not the biggest person on social media, but at the same time, like, I'm proud of what I've done. I'm excited about the things that we've all collectively accomplished. And so I want to show that. Yeah. You know, I don't think people will resonate with you if they don't think that you're, you know, practicing what you preach. Like, you know, it's pretty obvious to see like who is about this and, you know, and who isn't, you know, like, I mean, I don't really know a good example, but it's like, you know, somebody's making music, but all of their social media is about, you know, I don't know, freaking playing golf or going to brunch or something like that. Like, you know, like, and there's one picture of them at a show and that's it. Like, you know, because in all those conversations that people will have with you are like, man, it's like music's everything to me, you know, like, oh, yeah, you know, it's my whole life. And then, you know, you see that might not be necessarily the case, you know, and so it's tough for people to resonate. It's tough to grow like a fan base if people don't believe like what you're telling them.
Absolutely. It's your online resume.
Correct.
Basically. And yeah, and like even, you know, looking at your page, you have this awesome content where it's like you're in front of hundreds of people and you're playing music you love. You have your fiance on stage with you. Like, that's all awesome stuff. And that shows you as a human as well. Right. So it's like the you know, what I always tell artists is like, be a human, be authentic. Like, if you have other passions, figure out a way to combine those things. You know, I one of my favorite clients that I've worked with is a techno artist, and he's also a teacher. Yeah. And so we were brainstorming content ideas, and I was like, what if like you are like a teacher, you know, instructing on how to make techno and stuff. He took that to heart, and he's been doing a whole series on it, and it's hitting, and it's great. It's a little funny, a little serious, you know. So like take elements of your real life, and like, look, if you truly want to have a you know, share your life that is unrelated to music, like make 2 profiles, you know, have your personal profile and then have your music profile, and like make it easy for people like Rob to go in and say, yes, I want to book that person, you know?
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, we all love all that stuff. You know, everybody has, you know, stuff that they love outside of the music world, but, you know, if you're wanting this to be, you know, your life, then, you know, you need to act like it.
Show it. Yeah. And I love the story of you guys helping to book our friend Meg Morrow with that summit thing. And I was listening to her story. I actually made that the subject of my newsletter last week because I was so inspired by it when I was texting her. I was like, how did you get this awesome opportunity? She's like, well, I have a good reputation and my online presence is good and people recommended me, and then it all came to happen.
I mean, it's a lot more powerful for sure. I mean, that first show that I ever played in my life, somebody fell off the bill for whatever reason it was, and then the promoter put a post up on Facebook that was like, hey, this show is happening, who should play it? And I was like, I don't remember what I was doing. I wasn't on social media, but I had a ton of notifications on Facebook, and it was just people just tagging me. And I was like, shit, you know, because like at that point, like,
that stuff goes a long way. I mean, that's how I got my first gig at Larimer last year. I got to open for Please and Thank You, and he literally posted like, hey, we're looking for local Denver support, and I just hit up all my friends. I'm like, can you guys tag me in this? And like, my friends wouldn't tag me if they didn't like think I was a good DJ.
Exactly.
You know, like
100%.
They're my friends, but they'll also tell me how it is if I suck.
Exactly. Yes, they will. That's for damn certain.
That's why they're my friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, I mean, we're blowing through an hour almost here. I mean, I have a ton more questions, obviously, but I think like, I mean, maybe tell us a funny story of like your time in the trenches, like a horror story, or like just a complete, like something that's made you laugh over the years. You can think about that too. I definitely want to hear about like what's in store for the future for RC3 as an artist for 2025. You touched on that a little bit. What's in the future for 128 Productions? What you guys got coming up this year? And then anything else you want to talk on? You know, what's the future of this world look like? Anything. And I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. Yeah, I know, right? It's all just gonna die.
Yeah, I mean, on my side, obviously, there's gonna be a ton of music released this year. Don't really have anything I can share bookings wise currently. 128, we have, obviously, like I said, we have Mary Vaught coming up. We have John Summit in Vail next weekend, which is going to be a really big
ripper.
It's turned into like a festival. There's like 7 different events going on, I think.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be doing a lot more kind of experiential shows for 128 again. And then funny stories.
Best hangover meal.
Oh, best hangover meal? Dude, that's probably got to be, honestly, Anthony's Pizza.
Okay.
Shout out Anthony's Pizza.
Shout out Anthony's Pizza. I'm going to pick a random button again. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, all okay. Right. That works. That works. What else? Who's
going to win the Super Bowl?
Neither.
Hopefully. No teams are going to win the Super Bowl. 0-0 tie.
I'd be fine with
Who's the best sports team?
Boston Red Sox, bro.
Boston Sox. Go Sox, baby. Go Sox, Let's buddy. Go. I did not expect that answer, honestly.
Maybe not this year, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. Anything that's like from the trenches, like just complete fails, or I don't know. We could come back to that another time.
Complete fails. I mean, I feel like any of those complete fails are just blocked out of my subconscious.
Well, maybe not from you, but like just I don't know.
I mean, biggest fails that COVID existing, right? Like having to do shows around picnic benches, cordoned off. That was
COVID created some really cool opportunities. I mean, I DJ'd in parking lots at ski mountains because the Operays got shut down.
Oh, there you go.
The DJ collective I was a part of in LA, shout out Top Shelf Disco, turned into a record label, and I got to take on a role as like an A&R and marketing promotions, like get really some like solid
I got one
experience. I'm trying to prime the pump here for his
there
brain,
we go. I
so
appreciate
he can give us one last thing.
All right, so
before we go.
Oh man, I wouldn't say it. I mean, it was a fail of a situation for sure. The first year that we did Regenerate, we booked it April 22nd, I think, right? And it was our first time doing a show of that scale. We had Charlotte DeWitt, we had Diplo. It was a big show in Civic Center Park, and end of April, it's usually super nice. And I think we looked at past weather and all that's like 70 degrees, whatever. Well, the day before the festival, we get like 5 inches of snow. So wake up the next morning, get to the venue, and everything's just covered in snow. And I'm like, oh boy, like this could be very, very bad. I was the second person to play on the main stage, and the way that we had the stage built was that it was the big, the huge 550 stage, and then there was another stage that kind of went up to where the decks were, just because of all the LED ports and all that kind of stuff. And I remember walking up, and how stage stairs are. They're they're not the most stable sometimes. And I mean, they're covered with ice. I mean, just like 8 steps of just pure like looks like it came straight out of your
waiting to happen.
Oh my God. And so I'm like, I remember walking up and I'm like, all I could think about was like, don't fall. I'm like holding on to the edge of the rail, and obviously it's in full view of the crowd, and I'm just hanging onto it for dear life. Finally end up getting up there, and fortunately nothing really horrible happened. But I mean, you want to talk about anxiety before throwing an event, getting dumped on by snow.
Yeah, can you imagine?
It ended up being awesome though. Like it ended up being a lot of fun, and it warmed up a little bit, but that was definitely an experience and a half.
Can you imagine if like Diplo like slipped and fell and like broke something and like ugh?
I do have a funny Diplo story if you want to hear it.
All right. Well, yeah, and also by the way, yes, that was a successful event for you guys because you brought it back last year and had an even bigger, better experience. But yes, funny Diplo story. Let's hear it.
So we're up in the green rooms for the festival, and my parents came in for the show. And
shout out Rob's parents.
Shout out RC2. And we're walking from my green room to the elevator to go outside to the festival, and I had to run back and grab something, probably a beverage. And so my dad holds the elevator, and we get in the elevator, and it is my dad, Thomas, one other person, and myself. And my dad and him are just yapping away, and just about like military stuff. My dad was in the military.
You're talking about him and Diplo.
Yeah,
Wes, right?
him and Wes. Sorry, not Thomas.
Wes.
Sorry, him and Wes. And so we get back down. We get down, and my dad's like, "Man, that guy's like super nice, man. We're just chatting away." He was like, is he like part of 128 or something? And I was like, I just kind of laughed.
For
and I
one
was
day
like,
only.
yeah, I was like, no. I was like, that's Diplo. But yeah, it was pretty
Yeah,
funny.
he's one of those guys, like, if you don't know, you don't know. For as big as he is,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
still a lot of people that. That's really cool.
Yeah,
That's special.
Yeah.
Getting the fam to bond with the talent that you
Oh,
brought.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
absolutely.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for being on. This is a real pleasure. This is super fun. Like,
Yeah, it was a good time.
yeah, really cool. Thank you to 400 Productions. We're at their space today in the Denver metro area. Appreciate these guys for having us in here. We're gonna smile for the camera because we take a screenshot and we use it for the thing. 1, 2, 3. Maybe we'll do. No, we don't do that. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, like I said, check out RC3 as a producer, as a DJ. Check out 128 Productions and all the shows they have coming up. Yeah, this has been the Racket House Podcast. Thank you all for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time. All right, yeah.